Yeah, man, it's been nuts. But as I get older, and the big change is when I start surrounding myself with different people.
Yep.
That's when I notice the change. And no matter what it is, if it's drugs or just when you start changing what I call your circle of influence, that's when your life changes. Either direction, however that circle of influence goes, that's what happens. It could be good, like my mother's was. You know, when she became an adult and my brother and I moved out, she was working until she started doing drugs at 50. Then that's when her life fell apart. Or, you know, it goes the other way, and you quit hanging out with knuckleheads, and you start seeking out people that can
want to
help
emulate.
you. That can help you grow, and you have similar, you know, goals and ambitions and stuff like that. And
I feel the same way with travel.
Yeah.
Seeing different places.
Yeah.
And just seeing the way that different people live.
Yeah.
And it puts into perspective the way that you're living.
Yeah. I could remember being up on Highway 9, and I was poor my whole life, and I'm pumping gas, and across the street, some old beat up trailers. And there's what look like two Hispanic kids outside playing. They're pushing around a Power Wheel that has no battery in it, and they got giant smiles on their face. From the outside looking in, your life has to suck. You're living in this trailer that's about to fall apart. You're pushing around a Power Wheel that come off the side of the road that doesn't have a battery. Those kids didn't know any different. That was their life. They were just having fun. It's what they did every day.
Right.
Now, I talk about whenever I was in like third or fourth grade, my mom took us to a place in Oregon called Snowcap, which was a charity. And the way I remember it in my mind's eye was it was dark and dingy, kind of gloomy, in a basement that you'd see like a downtown basement, right? Garage roll-up doors. And it's like, over there's a pile of jeans. Go find a pair of jeans that fit you. Here's some jackets. Find something that fits or whatever. I just thought it was normal. I thought that's what everybody did. Wait, why would you know any different? And so I'm glad. I was telling somebody the other day, I'm glad I've had those experiences. I wish Ashlyn had some other experiences, but I don't ever want her to experience.
That's the struggle.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
I know.
You want them to do. You want them to be better, and you don't want them to want for anything and that kind of stuff. But it also
that can turn out really bad.
Yeah, I mean, I see it all the time in business with second generation guys that never had to really put in work. They weren't held accountable or whatever. Dad retires, leaves the business to them or whatever, and they just run in the ground. They just run in the ground. It's their personal toy, you know, their checkbook or whatever. And so you see it all the time. So I don't know, man. It's a struggle that we're all going to have to deal with our kids. But my biggest fear right now is drugs. I mean, that's my biggest fear, is keeping her off of drugs.
And how do you?
I don't know. My goal is to teach her how to make decisions.
That's,
Not scream and yell, don't go to Ocean Boulevard, because that's where she's going to end up. Mm-hmm. You know, just no, doesn't do any good, I don't think. I think you need to teach them the decision-making process and consequences and upside and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think that was the best thing with our growing up. I mean, we weren't exposed to it firsthand immediately, but at the same time, our parents always taught us, look, we've done this, this, and this, and this is how it turned out for us. Yeah. So we understand that you're probably going to come into contact with all of these things. Don't you think for a second that we're not going to know what you're doing because we've been there.
Yeah. And
just knowing that they had already experienced all that, and it wasn't foreign, because you think your parents don't know anything.
Right. They don't know anything. Yeah.
Of course. Your parents are just like these old people that have never had a life. They've never been kids. They don't understand what you could possibly be going through. But the truth is, now when you're a parent, you're like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
They were just trying to figure it out too.
Yeah, no,
you know?
Exactly. Well, that goes back to what I was talking about with, I always held my mother to a higher standard because your moms are older, they're wiser, they're everything. They're not, they're kids.
They're kids.
Just like we are.
Exactly.
Or we were or whatever. Yeah. Like, when my mom was my age, oh my God, I'd already moved out of the house.
Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have an 8-year-old.
Yeah. Well, and that's, you know, with Ashlyn, you know, I think about the things that worry me and what to do with her. And it terrifies me, but she started lying. I've caught her in a couple of lies, and the lies have been, one of them was just a reaction. She unbuckled her seatbelt down here on the main road. I'm like, what are you doing? Why'd you unbuckle? I didn't. Yeah. I'm like, you did. I heard it. Yeah. But all of our devices, the TV and all that stuff is tied to my phone. So if somebody searched something on Google, when I go to Google, it just pops up, right? And it was, how do guys get girls pregnant?
Ooh,
she's 8.
Yeah. Oh,
and so I come home, and I did it wrong because there was other people around. And I said, Ashley, I'm going to ask you a question, and all I want to do is see if you lie to me or not. That's all I already know the answer. Did you search this online? No, Daddy, it wasn't me. I don't even know, I don't remember. I don't know how to do it, whatever. I know it was you. Your mother doesn't need to know that, right?
She's very aware.
Yes, no, it was definitely you. But my niece lies all the time, and she claims it's because she's afraid she's going to get in trouble.
Yeah,
your parents already know the answer. That's why they're asking.
But you don't know that.
I could remember, like, my mom, when we moved to Oregon, my mom and her husband worked. And Toby and I would come home from school, and we'd get in trouble, and we'd have to be grounded, stay in the house or whatever. But they don't get home till 5:30. We're out playing or whatever until the time changed. And we didn't know that time changed.
Oh.
And it sprang forward. And we come home an hour after they're there. Yeah. But that kind of stuff's funny too, I mean,
I remember being a habitual liar when I was a kid.
My brother was terrible.
Well, it's funny now because I'm so not that way. I'm not brutally honest in a mean way, but I try and not ever lie because it's easier to keep up with the truth than it is to keep up with lies.
Yeah, most definitely.
But as a kid, I didn't realize that. And I remember bits and pieces, but I do very greatly remember just constantly having to remember the lie that I said to this person, to this person, to this person, and it would always catch up with me. And maybe that's what ended up making me not lie anymore. But at the same time, I mean, obviously you're going to tell little white lies here and there in your life. But at what point do you, I don't know. I don't know when I changed.
I think it's just part of getting older and maturing. Because at some point you just realize it's just nothing. Yeah. I mean, we're lying about nonsense.
Well, when I stopped drinking too, I didn't have to lie about a lot of things anymore,
right.
Or I didn't have to try to remember the truth.
Right.
Because it was just there.
And drink, I know we've talked about this before. I mean, what kind of age, because this was when you were in college, right?
I was 23 when I stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I just made really, really poor choices. I drank way too much when I drank. I didn't drink all the time, but when I did, black out every single time, and just half the time I don't remember what I did. I get flashes of things, and those flashes are enough to know that I did really, really bad things.
And it's scary. Like, I've got a girl that works with us, a friend of ours, that same way. When she would drink, she would black out. Like, she would be at Broadway and wake up somewhere. She has no idea how she got there, what happened in between the time of leaving and black. She has no idea.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah, it has to be terrifying.
It's terrifying too. And then you wake up the next morning, you have not only do you not have a concept of what happened, but you don't know who you spoke to. You don't know what. I always knew I needed to apologize, but I didn't know what for. I just assumed, I'd wake up and my husband wouldn't be there anymore. It's like, well, I clearly did something wrong last night, but what was it? I don't know. And then you have to constantly ask questions. And it just got to a point where it was like, when do you stop? When do you realize that your life is a compilation of blackouts and apologies, and really poor choices that started to define my character. And at some point, I mean, it was when with my husband, seeing me through his eyes was very eye-opening.
Right.
Because in the past, the people that I surrounded myself with, it was all the same. Everybody did it. We would go out, we'd get wasted, we'd come the next morning, laugh about all the stupid things that we did, and then do it the next night. And I met my husband, and he had never been exposed to that. His family does not drink, doesn't do drugs, doesn't do anything. So he looked at me, and I remember him one day calling me, what is it, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde?
Yeah.
He's like, I don't understand how you're the same person. The person that I love and the person that you are when you're drinking are so vastly different. Yeah. It doesn't make sense to me. And then it just got to the point where it's like, I'm going to lose this person in my life. And he was the type of person that I was trying to get my life towards, and trying to leave the people that were not making me, but just like those promoting.
Influences.
Exactly. Being okay with those choices I was making.
I could remember, for me, it was when I was in high school. All my friends were doing it, so we'd go out and drink every weekend. It was funny because my brother wouldn't drink then. So he would always drive me, and I'd be throwing up. He'd act, and I could remember he was like, "I'm so tired of this," and I'm blowing chunks in the trailer we live in.
Older or younger?
No, he's younger.
Oh wow!
But then after high school, I didn't drink any to speak of. I mean, once or twice a year, or whatever. And then he started drinking, and it just, I don't know. I don't need it. It doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
But Vicky's picked up drinking recently, and just it's every day, and I don't get it. But I've seen people that, like you said, are completely different.
Oh, yeah.
Completely different people. Like, you're like, how is this the same person?
Oh, you wouldn't know me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's a little.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that person in so long that I can look at her honestly,
Right.
and like I can be totally honest with why I did certain things. I
Right.
know for a fact at 31 years old right now that when I was 18 to 23, I drank to get drunk, to get blackout drunk, because sober me was too nervous. I had severe social anxiety. I wouldn't look you in the eye if I was talking to you. I couldn't walk in front of crowds. I couldn't walk into rooms where people were seated. And it was debilitating. And so for me, when I was drinking, I was
now you're the life of the party.
Oh, and I liked that person. I thought I liked that person.
Sure.
You know, I liked the fact that I could have all these friends and I could be the center of attention. But now looking back on it, I think about those people that I was around and I feel an embarrassment for that girl because I know the way that she probably looked and I can only assume the way that people thought of her, you know?
Well, you can see it now. When I see young people, I went to a party. We got a friend she was in her early 20s at this point. It was some graduation, maybe her birthday or whatever. And there's just all these 20-year-old kids around, and you can see it a mile away, and just bad decisions and just emotion. It's kind of gross. Like I remember like growing up, you know, back before cell phones, and you're on the phone with a boyfriend or girlfriend. Your mom, enough of this crap. Hang up the phone nonsense. Falling asleep with it, and just but like it would upset her back then, and now I get it. I was like, oh, it's beyond ridiculous. But for me, the lying stuff, I don't ever know that I lied a lot. But what would happen to me is I didn't want to disappoint people. Yeah. So if I was working for you and it wasn't working out, I just wouldn't show up. You can keep my last paycheck, any vacation. You can keep everything. Because I didn't want to go have that conversation because I was terrified of disappointing people. So it was easier for me just to cut ties and leave until I become a business owner and I had people quit on me, and I'm like, this is what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Because truly, the way I always did it was I really care about my employees. So if they had a better opportunity and they were leaving to go do something better, that's what I wanted them to do. Right. I'll be fine. The company, it's been here for 60 years. It's still going to be here. I want you to go be happy with your family and that kind of stuff. And that's when it really started changing for me. But I don't know. For me, it was about disappointment though. And you know, but even I guess, and it could be the same thing even like with Ashlyn is, did you search this? And it's I don't want to get, it's embarrassing. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to disappoint people or whatever.
That's probably the same. It was probably the same for me too.
Yeah.
Talking about quitting a job. I mean, I remember there's one time that I called out of work at the restaurant that I was working at. And I remember it so distinctly because I shouldn't have called out. I called out because we were at a bowling alley and I really wanted to stay.
Right.
And I lied and he caught me in the lie. He's like, do I hear bowling in the background? My dumb butt. I was like, oh no, they're playing Wii in the background. This is like, I perpetuate this lie because I'll be damned. Not only you're not going to catch me in this lie, and I'm going to bring it to my grave that I'm not. And then he called me on it when I came to work and I said, no, I was not.
I've got grown men that work with me today that still do. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh God. You only talk like that on Mondays and Fridays.
I know.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's stop.
I know.
You've got a certain amount of days off. You can use them however you want to. It'd be nice to have some notice, but if you don't want to come into work tomorrow, just call me and say, look, I'm not feeling it. I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
I'll see you the next day. You don't. But I don't know. It's just something ingrained in us. Some people grow out of it and some don't. It's like I've got a friend of mine in Tennessee that Vicky and I used to live with him. I love this guy. He's like a brother to me, but I can't hang out with him because he still acts like he's 20. Yeah. I mean, I tell stories about him coming to Myrtle Beach. He's like, hey, man, let's go to Broadway and get in bar fights. And I'm like,
oh, God.
I'm 43.
Let's not go to Broadway.
I've got a business. The police department is my customers. And why would I want to go get in fights? Yeah. This makes no sense. So I see him once a year at Christmas. I stop in and we'll text everyone, but I can't hang out with him. Mm-hmm. I don't need that in my life. I'm beyond that. If that's what's working for you, makes you happy, then I guess, but I can't.
I think that's probably the hardest part of growing up is talking about the circle of friends is recognizing when you're truly surrounding yourself with the wrong people and then making the decision to cut ties. because I had to completely cut a lot of people out of my life, and it's not easy, and it made me feel like a bad person.
Right.
Like they're not bad people.
You're the problem, right?
Yeah, right. Well, and the thing is that they're not bad people. They just do things that I don't want to be associated with anymore.
Right.
I don't ever want them to feel like I think I'm not better. I'm just trying to go in a different direction.
I'm moving on. That's right. I'm at a fork in the road of life, and I'm taking a different path right now.
That's right. But that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah. No, it's difficult. Like I said, my buddy, I see him once a year, talk to him 2 or 3 times a year, and that's it. And we pick up. I mean, it's been a year since I've seen you, I guess. No, we saw this summer. But it's about every 6 months we see each other, but you just pick up right where you're at or whatever. So, it's true, and it's just people's got different lives and whatever. But, man, Chris is – I miss him, but he's just I can't spend time with him.
Do it.
I can't. It's not where I don't need that in my life. I mean, it could destroy a lot of stuff. Like when my mom was addicted to drugs and I brought her down here to try to get her sober, I went to an NA meeting to look for advice and help, which was strange because I went and they sat around in the circle. They come around and introduce themselves, and it gets to me, and I feel like I've got to say something. So I'm like, my name's Michael Johnson, and I'm not an addict. And you could just talk about that anxiety.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. You could hear a pin drop in there. Then it goes on. Then they ask about sharing. Does anybody want to share? And so I stand up, and I tell them why I'm there because I felt like they needed to know that there's a reason I'm here. And my mother is an addict. She's in bad shape. And how can I help her? That's what I'm looking for this group of people that know the experience. After we got done, one person said we don't like new people to share. And then other people came up and said, you can't help her until she hits her bottom, right? And so we get her down here and we're helping, and she's calling her cousin or sending her cousin messages who was supplying her drugs and wanted her to send drugs to my house to her. And I'm like, talk about cutting ties?
Yep.
I'm like, you're leaving, and you're leaving now. Because you're not having somebody send drugs to my house and cost me my job, cost me my business, cost me my home. You're not doing it. If that's what it takes, if that's where you're at, then you can be homeless. I don't care. I mean, and those are tough decisions.
Especially as your mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we got through it, and hopefully she straightened out. I don't know. But yeah, it's been a challenge with her. I mean, the last 10 years of her life has just been devastating.
Yeah.
But it's all self-inflicted.
That's the struggle.
Yeah, it's 100% self-inflicted.
Look, some people are products of environment. Some people unfortunately are just, but they're choices.
Yeah,
and some choices are just gonna keep bringing you down further.
No, you can absolutely be a victim of circumstances if that's what you want to be.
Absolutely.
Or you can say, I'm not going to be a victim of circumstances. I'm going to change the circle of people I'm with, or I'm going to do this or do that. And it happened with my brother. He came down 2 years ago, started working with me, wasn't happy, and I'm like, you need to go be happy.
I remember talking to you about this. Yeah,
he left in the end of December. The end of December was his last day. Went to Tennessee, worked for 2 weeks, quit his job there. Talked to him today. Now he's moved. He's got a contract on his house down here. He has no job. Like, to me, that would be a long way from being happy for me. But you've got to do what makes you happy, and whatever that is, and go find it.
Yeah.
And you have to address it because if you just pack up and move and you don't address the root, then you're just taking it with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but it was just crazy decision making. So you were partying and stuff till 23. When did you go to art school?
I was in art school.
Oh, while you were partying and all this stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, honestly, some of the worst times as far as social problems go was when I was in school. And for some reason for me, I'm hard on myself, and I hold myself very accountable when it comes to school. I refuse to do poorly in school. So no matter what I was doing on the weekends, no matter what I was doing at night, I was in school, I was in class, and I was working, and I always somehow got my work done. I think about it now. My freshman year of college, I was drunk at least 3 to 4 nights a week. And they were always weeknights because I would go home on the weekends because I had a boyfriend, and that's a whole nother story. But I would go home on the weekends, so I was never there for the real party time. So I would start the parties during the week. So I was drinking on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. And I left my freshman year a 3.9. because I was in the honors college. So for whatever dumb I was doing, at least I knew that was something that I wasn't willing to give up. And I'm so fortunate because I knew a lot of my friends just failed out.
Yeah.
And then I moved to South Carolina, still in business school, hated business school, which is probably a good bit of my, well, I'm going to business school. I don't enjoy it. So let me do something that I enjoy on the side. Worked at a restaurant, surrounded myself with, I was a bartender too.
Right.
So, you know,
Right.
you just,
all those influences.
right, exactly. You perpetuate exactly what you're doing every single night. But school was always that one thing that was consistent. And I think it's the only thing that kind of kept me above water was school and
Right.
knowing that I had a goal, and I always wanted to be a tattoo artist. I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to just tattoo, but mom wasn't having it. So I went to school, and I'm glad I did now. When I switched from business to art is when I found myself, I
Right.
guess. And then somewhere, gosh, it took me almost 5 years to graduate. I took a semester off. So I would say my second to last year of school is when I met my now husband. And that's kind of when things started to shift.
Right.
We were both in really bad places. We were both kind of just, I was struggling. He was struggling. We were both in counseling separately. We came together. We had a lot of stuff going on socially. And then after about a year of being together, after him putting up with me doing dumb
Right.
stuff after over and over again, drinking, quit drinking, go to a counselor to get through that. And then then I finished school, started tattooing. When I started tattooing, that's when I really started to find myself, if you will, because I didn't allow myself to have those outside influences. I mean, me and Arsenio became homebodies for sure,
Yeah.
but it was intentional.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't need any of that extra because I was happy.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized.
It's when I talk to people, to me, there's 3 keys to success: happiness, circle of influence, and for me, it's selfless. I think there's a lot of value in being selfless. And I think that brings joy and happiness as well. But you've got to be happy. I wrote a blog the other day about money and doing a job for money. There has to be a component of happiness. Yeah. The comp plan has to include money because we all have bills to pay,
Right.
but there has to be some happiness in there. And if you do anything for money, if you decide to be a tattoo artist because of money,
Ooh. You see it all the time.
right? But you'd quit at some point because you've got to build up that book of business. I mean, you don't say, I'm going to be a tattoo artist and tomorrow you're booked out 1.5 years.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that takes
Yeah.
a long time
Right.
and a lot of work. So it's crazy. It's crazy to me that people think that it's easy. They see it from the outside that, you know, oh my God, she's booked out 1 year. She's charging whatever she's charging for an hourly rate. But then they don't see the stuff behind the scenes.
Right.
Like my back piece.
Right.
I don't know. You probably spent 40 or 50 hours drawing the thing and then another 40 or 50 tattooing it. I mean, it's a ton of work and it's not easy, and it's
But you've always recognized that, and there aren't many people like that,
Well,
and that's
well, but I didn't reckon again until I got older.
Yeah.
You know, because I had a horrible experience as a teenager with a tattoo that, thank you covered up. I need to put all the pictures. I need to take pictures of them and put them up in the video. But even then, talking about anxiety, when we first met and you did that cover up on
oh my
me
God.
5-6 years ago, probably, I had no idea. And you're like talking about how nervous you were.
Oh my God, I was terrified.
And I'm like, you are an amazing artist. Why in the world are you
Terrified.
terrified of this? You do unbelievable work.
You left after that second session. I was like, he's never coming back. He's been tattooed by the best. Why would he ever want to come back to me? And then
I've
you
been
called
tattooed
me.
by the best now.
Well, when you called me, I was like, oh my God, he wants another one?
Yeah.
Oh my God. And then I was still nervous. And then every time you came in, nervous.
We've put a lot of time in. What?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the whole back.
Yeah.
We've put in a lot
We've
of time.
had some time together,
We
yeah.
have.
But then I started to know you as a person too. And
Yeah.
I think that to me, that's where my happiness comes from my job. Obviously, I love what I do. I love to draw. I get to draw every day. It's more stressful than that because, you know, changing canvas every single day is insane. But my happiness comes from the connections that I make with people. Like I meet so many different people on a day-to-day basis. I learn their story. So for me, it's like I don't have to travel outside of work in order to get what you were talking about surrounding yourself with different people.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm noticing about this is I get to invite in complete strangers. I started with people I knew and people I knew that had good stories, but then I'm talking to complete strangers and you get to know their stories. Like Drew, who did the podcast with me about, he owns a local food truck.
Oh.
Well, we get into this thing an hour into it, and he's telling me that was born in Honduras. He was the 9th child. The 8th child was sick, is what he tells me. And I don't know the relevance of it. He wasn't planned, and that he was supposed to be thrown in a river and drowned as a newborn. Like he wasn't supposed to live. This is a complete stranger sharing this with me.
Isn't that fascinating?
Oh, it's unbelievable. And I got a guy that's supposed to come in this week that's on a journey. He was at like 600 pounds at one point. And you get to meet all these new people.
Exactly.
And what you get to see every day, and talking to people. But it's a lot of fun. And that's why I do it. Everybody's got a story.
Yep.
I tell mine too much, but
it's no, because I think that's the whole point. So because you're able to talk to people, you're able to relate. And I always feel like no matter who you talk to, you're going to be able to relate with some, even if it's just the most minuscule aspect of their life, your ability to relate with that one thing is what opens up those doors.
But like for me, like how you mentioned when we first met, you were terrified and anxious and all that stuff. Like I used part of the quote in a letter you sent me on my website. I don't feel like I deserve that stuff at all. Like I got it. And I had it actually put on a roll-up banner for trade shows. Like this young lady from Sauk City High School, she sends me a thank you letter. It's like, you'll never know how much of an impact you've had on my life. And I'm like, I asked one person one question. I did the bare minimum, but maybe that was more than anybody else did. I don't know. But I feel like I don't deserve that stuff because it's just so little. All I'm doing is talking and running my mouth or whatever. But
that's the whole point.
But I love it. I mean,
exactly.
I love encouraging other people that, I'm an idiot. At 14, I couldn't spell service. If I can do it, as cliche as it is, absolutely anybody can. You just can't quit.
No, because that's what you don't see. You changed my life, and you probably had no idea. But in those interactions that I had with you and with, seeing your journey from where you came from to where you are today and how you did it, and just talking about, again, those relationships that you form, the relationship with your now partner, all those things. And you constantly encouraging me, like, you can do this, telling me that I was talented. You can hear, I think that you can hear the same thing from multiple different people, but until that one person says it, maybe it doesn't click right,
Yeah.
For it coming from you, and then just the way that you interacted with me, constantly telling me that I needed to charge more money, that I was worth more than what I was charging. You're
probably still not charging enough.
No, probably not. But in my heart, it's like I don't feel like I could charge more than that because I already feel like I charge so much. But even still, what you did for me was gave me a different type of confidence that I didn't have then. Family's going to tell you, yeah, you can open a business. But when you said it, it was like, well, maybe I really can. Maybe this is something that I can actually make happen and be successful with. And now, almost 2 years later, it happened.
And you don't have to be there every day, and it'll run on its own. And
it's a crazy, crazy thing. Yeah. But if you had asked the me that met you, I honestly didn't know. I knew, that's always been my goal. My goal is always, open your own place. I used to say it. I feel like there's a lot of talking points, and my talking point was always like, oh yeah, no, eventually I want to own my own tattoo shop. But did I believe it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you guys don't have shops. That's a bad word for what you guys have. You guys have art studios. I mean, it's next level. It's not some scratcher's hideout. I mean, it's art studios, and even like just talking about art. Like that commission piece you did for those people in Florida, are you still doing? Do you have time for commission stuff at all, or are you just too wrapped up with?
Yeah, but again, that's something that I'm working towards, and that's been the whole goal. Is when Jen and I decided, like, we're gonna make this studio what it is, and we're gonna grow it. The thought behind growing was not, I don't want to make $1 million, and I say that all the time. I don't the money to me is a means to an end.
Yes.
So for me, it's I'm gonna grind. We're gonna work as hard as we can for as long as we can, so that I can get to a point where I don't have to be there as much. I can be home, and in being home, that's going to afford me the opportunity to finally start doing those pieces again. You know?
Yeah. Well, and that's, when I decided that I wanted to spend more time speaking, and hopefully at some point it turns into a full-time gig. Right. I want to focus on K through 12, so I have summers off to spend more time with my family and travel.
Right.
That's the why. That's the end result. That's what I want to get to, is spending more time. I can remember when we would talk about you opening your own place, and there was one person that's in this room that we would talk about every time. I was like, you have got to get. Yep. Just tell her. You've got to come down here.
It was like every time we talked about it.
Yeah, that's what it was. Too. I was like, what's going on with Jen?
I was like, I'm working on it. I'm still working on it.
And I had never even met her at that point. I'm like, what's going on? You said you got to have Jen. Where's she at? And then finally she's coming. And then you guys go build this amazing thing. And I don't want to talk about Jen until we get Jen in here. But I mean, you go build this amazing thing. She goes through the process and is unbelievably talented.
And now look, I know.
I mean,
it's like both of our lives have changed so dramatically from that point.
It's unreal for artists. And I think I've asked you this before. Why are you guys so nervous to share your stuff with the public? Like I see people that do amazing artwork and they won't put it out for people to see. Is it because it's private? I mean, why?
No.
Or is it?
It's I don't want to call it a lack of confidence, because I'm confident in what I do. I'm not an idiot. I know that I'm talented at what I do. There's always going to be. I'm never going to be as good as I want to be. It's just that simple.
Yeah, none of us will, I don't think.
But I guess in my artwork, when it's on paper, it's one thing. When it's on paper, I know that I should have tweaked this, I should have done that differently, but it's still a product and I can build from it. With tattooing, it's on a person. That's a permanent change to that person's body. So when I see something in that tattoo that I feel like I could have done differently, and maybe I don't know how I would have done it differently, but I wish it was a little different, and I can't pinpoint what it is. That's why. And you can be in love with your tattoo, and that's all I ever want. I want you to love what you have, and I want you to feel proud in the skin that you wear. But it's always going to be a struggle for me.
You could pick it apart for sure, from design to technical to whatever.
All of it.
But like when we did that first portrait of Ashlyn, that made me extremely nervous, because you screw up a portrait.
Right.
And it doesn't take much. I mean, I'm not saying some of this janky stuff we see online. I mean, one thing out.
Yeah.
A
nostril's too big.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the same person.
Yeah.
And I've got friends of mine that cannot stand tattoos, hates them. And that's the first thing he said is, I don't like tattoos, but this is the most beautiful tattoo I've ever seen. But it was perfect. And my favorite piece you've ever done on me is that piece of my grandmother.
That's my favorite too.
That's my favorite piece. I think it's held up. It's held the blacks. That's my favorite. And I cannot see it.
I know.
That's like my back. I've never seen it. I have never seen it. And,
I know, it breaks my heart.
But you get compliments on it all the time. But for me, it's, and again, I had to grow up. They're all part of a story and a journey. It wasn't that I want to get X because that's the cool thing this year.
Right.
We all go through the tribal phases and tramp stamps and whatever the phase is now. But I catch that stuff and I'm like, that's real cool. I just drew a blank, but the stuff that was red and black and something. What was that style called? Punk? Was it punk?
Trash polka.
Yeah, trash polka. I mean, like that. But does it hold up over time? I don't know. Is it still going to be cool? It's pretty cool right now.
That's the thing. You never know with style. Now to me, that's more of a style than
right. The tribals, the Tasmanian devils.
If you survived the 90s without tribal, you did well.
Yeah.
But I mean, and it's always going to come and go. I guess that's probably the only struggle in the industry is there's always going to be fads.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, you're gonna, and I don't want to name the fads because anybody out there who has them, but there's always going to be the tattoo that 9,000 people are getting it at the same time. Yeah. And I guess my goal, and I know my sister's goal and my dad's goal as the tattoo artist that we are is, okay, if that's what you want, how do we make it yours?
Right.
Because the Lord knows in 10 years, you're going to be looking at it like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Yeah. But hopefully, you give it enough love, you give it. And I think a lot of what we do and the difference between our studio and other studios is we really care about you as a person. And I think that comes across in the interaction that we have during the tattoo. So, and I remember being in the restaurant, they would say, people will talk about a bad experience 10 times more than they will about a good. So in order for you, my biggest thing is making sure that your tattoo experience is good, because people will go to not the best artist in the entire world, but they'll stay loyal if they enjoy how they interact with that person. You know what I mean? So to be able to do both, to be able to give somebody a beautiful piece of artwork, make them feel like they're family, because all my clients, because how do I make friends? That's the only way I make friends. I don't go anywhere.
That's all you got time for. Yeah.
That's the only way. But I've met some of the most amazing, incredible people that I would have never met otherwise in that room. And I could have just sat there silent, put my headphones in, given them a tattoo, and they could have been on their way and I wouldn't have known anything about them. But for me, I started talking just because I was nervous.
Yeah. Well, and for me, that's what I wanted. Like, and I worry about talking too much, because like I'll go to get a massage and I won't shut up. I will not, because it's number one, it's like therapy. Yeah. But number two is I just enjoy meeting different people. You never know who you're going to run into.
Exactly.
I mean, it could be your next business, but it could be anything. And so I'm always talking to people. So again, with people talking, thinking about like kind of overnight success, and we'd mentioned your shop's been open for 2 years. It's in a 2-year process. It was when you were 19 or whatever, going to school, to 29, 30, to get to where you're at today. I mean, but in the scope of life, it's just a drop in the bucket.
Exactly. I know.
It's 10 years. I mean, it's nothing for 10 years to achieve a dream. I mean, you put it in perspective of like sports players and stuff like that have been playing since they were 5 or 6 to, I mean, they've put a full career in by the time they get out of high school.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to young people? Like when I talk to people about alternative careers, I could see my parents. Mom, I'm going to go be an artist. That's cute, but go to school and get a business degree or whatever.
Right.
Which is nothing wrong with that. But I mean, what about support, or is it, is there?
It's hard because, we came from an artistic family. So my parents always truly did support the fact that I was an artist. But like my mom is an artist herself. She's the one who owns the tattoo studio that I ended up working at. But in her head, you better get a degree. I could have skipped 5 years of my life. I could have went right to tattooing out of high school. My dad is a tattoo artist. So I could have just trained under him, which is what I wanted to do.
Right.
And then gotten into this career so much sooner. She really wanted me to have that degree. And because I was told in high school and by basically every person that I came into contact with, well, you'll never make any money at art, so you better do something as a backup. You better have a backup, right? Yeah. Because there's no way you're going to do it. And I did. I listened and I went to business school and I was miserable. I mean, I hated it. And I went to both of the schools that I went to had exceptional business programs. I did really well. I hated it. Oh my God, I hated it so much. Now looking back, it was marketing that I was going for. I mean, it just so happened that it was great. And I did that because in the back of my head, I knew I always wanted my own studio. So I figured, well,
I'll be able to use this at some point.
If I do marketing, I mean, I'm sure it won't go to waste. But I called my mom in my second year of school and I was crying. I remember I'm staring at this accounting book. I had an accounting teacher tell me, I raised my hand. I'm like, this sounds really corrupt. So what's the deal? She goes, oh, that's just the way business is. And I thought, oh no, I can't. Yeah. I can't be a part of that. And I remember sitting there looking at the book crying. And I called her and I said, Mom, I'm either dropping out of school or I'm changing my major. And she was like, well, change your major.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. That's probably a better life choice, you know? And then switching my major. But looking back now, if I had just gone into tattooing, I wouldn't have gained everything that I did.
You wouldn't be the artist
you know. I
now.
wouldn't have been the artist. You're right. I learned so much artistically. I learned a different voice than I knew I had. So it really is all part of the process. And I guess the only advice that I can give to people who might, you know, you're not going to be a teacher, you're not going to be a nurse, you're not going to be in business, you know, the standard careers that are acceptable. If just don't give up and understand, though, you're going to have to grind. Yeah. I think that's the best thing that I can say. If you want to do something, musician, artist, athlete, anything that's not common, just work your butt off. Don't stop until you get there, because you can get there. Yeah. You're just going to have to, you know, go without for a while.
And you're going to fail, and you learn from those failures. But
I think my biggest lessons have been from failing.
I know mine 100%. Have. I know mine have.
100%. You have to.
Oh my God.
You have to. You have to fall.
And fortunately, if you've, you know, some people make failures that cost them their lives or whatever. But if it's just money, it sucks, but you can recover from that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I've always looked at it as if all educations are expensive. If you learn from it, it's an education. Yeah. If you don't learn from it, then you're just making mistake after mistake.
I totally agree.
Why don't your mom tattoo?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think my mom is really good at running the studio.
Oh, she's unbelievable.
You know, she's really good at keeping track of all those things. She's extremely stubborn and trying to teach her to tattoo. My dad tried. Now, okay, I will give her this. My dad's a lefty. My mom's a righty.
Okay.
Just the logistics of that alone is very difficult. It was easier for me because I just focused on what he was doing and not how he was doing it.
Right.
Per se. So he did try and teach her, and she said, I got this. And clearly she did not got this, you know, so that was to no avail. I've thought about it. I think that because maybe my mom's drawing style is a little bit more similar to me and my sister, I think, maybe we could have taught her. Yeah. She's even considered it as she's gotten older. Well, I kind of wish that I had learned a tattoo, but what I always assumed, and working with her for 7 years, it would be very difficult for my mom to be in a room tattooing and not focusing on what's going on outside of the studio.
I can see that. But it's when you talk earlier about the experience, since the day I walked in there 5, 6 years ago, whatever it was, it felt like family. Yeah. Immediately. And I still stop in, I still see your mother, and I still give her hugs, and we cry together, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. It feels like family.
People call her mom. Home. I mean, a lot of people call her mom.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, but I think she might miss that aspect of it, because
if she couldn't get up, couldn't stop, couldn't do whatever.
Right, because. Yeah. Yes, we sit in the room, and yes, we're able to talk and we're able to connect, but we still have a job to do. You know, with my mom, she has a job to do, but her job is to connect with people and to talk them through. And sometimes, you know, she's talking them through the worst thing that's ever happened to them.
Right.
And that's why they're getting the tattoo. My mom is extremely empathetic and sympathetic. I mean, she has a way of drawing things out of you without you even realizing she's doing it, which is where I think we get it. Our fathers also, both of our dads are the same way, you know? So that's probably the best thing that I got working with her for that long, is hearing the way that people just downright opened up to her and just would tell her things like you said, and then tell me things. So that's probably why there's a lot of reasons why she doesn't tattoo. But
as I'm thinking about that, you know, way back to when I was talking about employees leaving and going doing their own thing.
Yeah,
it was difficult for your mom and dad for you to leave.
Oh, I'm sure
it affected the business. I mean, it affected that aspect. They want you to succeed, and they were coming to see you and support you, and that was always the struggle working with them for so many years, because there's this part of me that
knows that I want to open a studio. I knew that I wanted not more monetarily, not more. I just wanted, I had this idea, you know, I've always thought, how cool would it be to have an all-female studio? Like, you know, I'm a female tattoo artist. There aren't too many of those. It's growing now. But when I started, there really wasn't. Like Kat Von D is who I looked up to because she was the biggest female figure that this is before social media.
Right.
Now you see social media and there's incredible female artists all over the place. But at this time, that's what I wanted. But then the struggle was, well, we tattoo in a small town. There's no way I could go to another studio. I never would. And there's definitely no way that I'm going to open another studio in the same town as my parents.
Right.
That's just not an option.
Right.
So my struggle was, how am I ever going to achieve that goal without hurting my parents?
Right.
And it just so happened that my husband wanted to go and get a PhD, and that was going to force us to move. So in that move is when I was able to pursue that goal without it being, I'm leaving you guys because I just don't want to be a part of this anymore, you know? Because that was never the case.
Yeah.
They gave me my career. I mean, my dad taught me my career. Like, I wouldn't have it without him. There's no way that if I didn't know Dana in my life as my dad, I would not be a tattoo artist. And I can say that pretty confidently because I was never exposed to it.
But it's weird how that, if one fork in the road,
isn't that crazy?
And life is completely changed forever.
She could have never met him.
Yeah.
And who knows where we would be.
Yeah.
And I really can't tell you that.
Yeah. No, I think about it as much as we moved around and stuff. And like, I was very shy in high school. I wouldn't go approach girls or talk to them. And my wife walked into a restaurant I was working at. For some reason, I just walked up, sat down, and started talking. like I would have never done that. And 25 years later, here we are. I mean, it's crazy how those things could, the kind of the butterfly effect of how it could just change everything.
Oh my God. And then looking back on the little things that got you to that place.
Yeah.
And seeing how it all oddly tied together.
Like, I even think about like when I become a partner at Myrtle Beach Com is, if I wouldn't have quit the job at the Ford dealership and not responded to that customer service representative ad in the paper, who knows?
Who knows?
I mean, it could be better, could be worse. I mean, I don't know. It could be much better. But that's the other thing. When you're talking a minute ago about monetary stuff, it's easy for me and you to talk about happiness because we make plenty of money, right?
Yeah.
But so I wonder about, you know, people that are struggling, but you don't have to make as much money anyways, right? I tell young people, don't go out and get a $900 truck payment, right?
Exactly.
Because now you're tied down to working some job that you may or may not like to make a truck payment. If you go chase those dreams, maybe you can get by on $1,000 a month that you could get bartending or whatever. But it took me a long time of stuff, you know, buying crap I didn't need and all that stuff before I realized that we've all heard it, right?
Stuff.
You can't buy happiness, but it is. It's just stuff, and it doesn't matter in the end.
Because, you know, and I was really happy when I was making $300 a week. Well, hopefully, you know, but bartending, that was my hope, paying all my own bills because I had, you know, met Arsenio. And when I was doing well in school and I was finding myself. So the money, like we were doing fine.
Yeah.
You know?
And I've had to work jobs because we had bills to pay, but I've always made an effort to be happy. Yeah. And if I wasn't happy, then I'd just go find some other job or do whatever. But no, I've got super fond memories of Vicky and I living in an apartment that cost us $200 a month.
Exactly.
And I look back, but it was I think it was $235 a month. We eat gobs of hamburger helper. And you know what I mean? Yes. That's just all there was. I mean, there was no, like I went the other day to Costco and I'm looking at steak and it's $26 a pound. And I'm like, there was none of that.
No.
But I take it for granted now because if you want steak, you just go get it or whatever. But if I was in a situation that I had to make a decision of $25 a pound steak or happiness, I'm gonna eat a salad. I want to
Hands
do
down.
something. It's because ultimately it's not that important.
No.
And to me,
you know what?
happiness is so important.
Even making the money though, I mean, I do. I do well. I make good money. I'm able to support us. I'm still, I don't know if it maybe because I didn't make a lot of money for so long that now even making what I make, it's all, I guess it's just always going to be a means to an end for me because for me, it's, well, right now I'm making and I'm working as hard as I can because my husband's in school and he's achieving his goal. Like he watched me through achieving my goal. Now it's his turn and we kind of go back and forth and we change whoever wants to do what they want to do as long as the other can support. That's what we do. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I really don't take home as much as I possibly could because I'm busy building something else that we want, whatever it is that we want. We want to have a kid. So we do that. My mortgage is very, very low. Yeah. I could have bought a big fancy house and had a $2,000 well, I would never do that. But I could have had a much higher mortgage on a gorgeous big house. Yeah. And I chose to have the $500 mortgage because to me, I'm going to make whatever 4 walls into my home because it's mine,
It's so important. But I see, and I've done it. That's why I see it because I've done it plenty of times. I see people all the time going out and buying big trucks or toys or big house. I met a man in Florence that bought a house that was so expensive he couldn't afford to put furniture in it.
So what's the point?
That's asinine to me.
You just sleep on the floor, but I have a pretty house.
Right, but that's just the way it was. And that doesn't bring me happiness. But I've been through that and I've had to learn from
I think that it's that constant idea of keeping up with the imaginary Joneses and living beyond your means. You think that because you see these people with all these fancy things that's why they're happy. Yeah. First of all, you don't know if they're really happy. Right. And I think that's the struggle with social media is you're seeing a snapshot of the best part of that person's day. Right. And they could be miserable because they can't afford anything else, but they got this pretty ring or, whatever it may be in that picture. And because you see that, you think, well, I have to have that ring. I have to have that hair, that makeup, that style in order to be happy. And then when you strip it away and you realize that you don't need any of it to be happy, I think that's when.
I have had family come to me in tears and say, I don't know what to do. I'm tired of living a double life. Because on social media, everything's great. Here's this, here's that, all the pictures and metaphorically have the right light and all that kind of stuff. But that's not really who I am. I'm struggling. And I mean, like literally in tears. What do I do? But it goes back to just why? Who cares? Nobody cares.
Exactly.
Nobody cares if you've got whatever. Nobody cares. No. So why do you care what other people that don't care think? It's crazy. But we've all been there at some point, or at least most of us have.
Look, if you go online, you might not know that I exist. I mean, I exist through people's posts of me because I don't. But I'm still guilty, even though I don't give in to like posting a lot of pictures and putting all my personal information out there. There are still moments where I go on the social media and I see all this stuff and I think, oh my God, am I as happy as they are? Yeah. Like, look at how good they look. What am I doing? Sure. And then I have to slap myself like, don't let that, but just letting those little things creep into my mind, it makes me think how often and how regularly, especially young people, see that and think, well, I'm nothing if I don't have X.
See, I had this conversation with Drew. It was the same thing. And I feel that with a lot of kids. And you look at like these young, and I talk about it way too much on the podcast, but I think it makes sense because it resonates with everybody and it just comes up naturally. But you see these young YouTube stars and it's all freaking Lambos and all this kind of stuff. And then you get young people looking at that and I don't matter if I don't have that. And the work was easy, right? Again, back to whatever your hourly rate is. I know, 150 to whatever the rate is, that's a lot. But it's all the work that goes into it. It's the business. It's every bit of it. It's not we got to dig below the surface a little bit to really get in. But I feel bad for people that get wrapped up in the keeping up with the Joneses on social media, because it doesn't bring you happiness. It's going to cost you a fortune.
It's stressful
to try to impress people that could care less.
Constant.
It's so bizarre.
Constant. And then you constantly are living through a lens and not really enjoying that moment.
Yeah. Well, that right there with like live events, it drives me crazy.
This is how I watch my life.
Why do you want to watch it through? Put the phone. Somebody else will put the video up. Just experience what's in front of you right now.
I know.
And I don't know. That is so weird to me. Like, you go to a concert or whatever, and you're just holding up a phone, and you're watching a video of something that you paid money to be there for.
And chances are you're never going to watch that video.
Yeah.
So you're giving up that experience. But I think because you see it so often, it's almost like, well, if I don't do this, did I really experience it?
Or is it, hey, I've got to show everybody that I was at Elton John's concert.
Exactly.
So I'm going to go see Elton John.
I think it's both. I think it's all of it. You know, it's and I've been struggling with it having a baby. Yeah. You know, I'm in this dueling. I want to just stare at her and be so present in every single moment. And then, oh my God, I have to capture this moment so that I have memories. And then, I mean, this is a silly thing, but something I'm struggling with right now is I haven't been keeping a baby book. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm not writing it all down. So, how am I going to remember? Well, you're experiencing it, So where's the line? I don't know. I really don't, because I do want her to look back on some things and see, yes, your mom did pay attention and she kept track of all these things. But like, I've been there for all of it too. So
like life, there's got to be a balance.
Right.
And I told you about setting Ashlyn up a Gmail account, right?
Yes.
You need to set up an account.
I need to do that. I didn't even think about that.
Email her pictures and email her stories.
And that's how I can do it.
Yeah. And then just for me, whenever Ashlyn gets married or goes off to college or I drop dead, that's when she'll get the password to
hopefully
this account.
First two.
Yeah, hopefully the first two. Yeah, I don't know about the married man. I struggle with that right now. Like I'll go out of town and start watching videos of like daddy daughter dance, and I'm weeping like a baby in a hotel bed, and I worry about that kind of crap. Inside I shouldn't be worried about 20 years down the road with her getting married, I can't watch these videos online about kids giving their stepfathers, will you please adopt me stuff, and I'm just it's terrible. You mentioned a counselor. I actually sent my therapist a link to a video, and I'm like, why does this make me cry? I don't get it. And what it was is, there's a group of guys out of California started a YouTube channel called Yes Theory. And the whole thing is they typically bump into strangers on the street and say, we've got an amazing adventure. Come with us, yes or no. That's kind of the premise. And like they have these amazing adventures and whatever. Or it'll be like, let's go on a blind date to Europe. And with just a complete stranger. It's a beautiful thing that they do. And they were in Europe and they decided to Airbnb a mansion that I don't remember how many people would sleep, whatever. Let's call it 20. And they go find 20 backpackers on the street. They invite them all back. Just yes or no. We've got an amazing event planned for you. Yes or no. They get in the car, and one of them was, I want to say they were going around the table and they were talking, and there was a Jewish person and a Muslim side by side, and they're like, this would never be possible in my culture. And I'm just sobbing and carrying on. But I mean, that's what's important to me right now is again, being selfless and all that kind of stuff. But
that yes man thing, that's so interesting, because that's something that Arsenio and I constantly have thought about, like since we began our relationship, is recognizing that your life is just a series of what you say yes to and what doors you open, and how different every single decision can be if you just say no to it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and with these guys, I mean, it started out as as any other YouTube channel with zero followers or subscribers. And they just did a video not too long ago where they went bungee jumping with Will Smith out of a helicopter.
What?
Yeah, I mean, they're huge. They've got a huge Instagram following, but they just go on these crazy adventures of, throw a dart at a map, and we're going to that town to find strangers to do whatever with. Oh, it's like that's the kind of stuff that I would love to do.
Yeah.
If I didn't have responsibilities. If I was a 20-year-old that could go work at a bar in Aspen for the winter or whatever, that's the kind of stuff that I'd want to be out doing.
Yeah.
Is having experiences with complete strangers, learning other cultures, and just enjoying life.
Well, you are doing that just in a very different way.
It's just different, yeah, because there's responsibilities and kids and that kind of stuff. But we do it as much as we can.
Yeah.
We just got to be scheduled, right? You just can't go to the drop of a dime anymore. But it's been a lot of fun.
I'm working towards it, trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, at some point, so how many, you're all female shop. How many people are working there now?
There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of us. So there's my front end manager, female, and then me and 2 other female tattoo artists.
Are they all permanent artists, or do you have somebody there?
I have one who's a guest artist right now, and she'll be there until May, hopefully longer, from California. But my other girl is permanent, yes.
How does, because I see it all the time, or I've seen it all the time. How does that even happen?
The guest artist?
Yeah, I mean, do you just reach out to them? Do they reach out to you?
She reached out to me. Yeah.
She's like, hey, I want to come check out
and
South
I think
Carolina.
for the most part, it goes like that because if you're a traveling tattoo artist, you know where you want to go. Yeah. So you reach out to a studio in that area. And then if they have space for you, you go and you work in that location and you get a cool experience for weeks, months, days, whatever it may be. I mean, there are some tattoo artists that's their life. That's what they do. They don't have a permanent location, or they own a studio. They don't necessarily tattoo out of it. They make the money off of that, and then they go and they travel and they do conventions and they go to other countries and whatever it may be. So for her, her fiance was working in Anderson. He got an internship.
Okay.
So he was going in 3-month stints, and they did 3 months apart, and she decided she wanted to be there. So she started looking at studios in our area, found ours, really liked ours.
That's been a good fit.
It was perfect. She said not only she loved the work, the tattoo work, and then she recognized that it was a female tattoo studio, and it was like, oh my God. Yeah. But she reached out to me. I saw her work. I fell in love. I mean, she's extremely talented, and I got back to her as fast as I could type, and it just, look, I think that everything truly does fall into place the way that it should. Sure. And I think that one decision turned into another decision, and now my studio is the way that it is. I couldn't have done it without my sister. Like, I don't know what... There would be a studio, but I don't know what it would be. You know what I'm saying? So,
oh, absolutely. I mean, she was a huge part of it. But it was just the two of you.
Exactly.
I mean, that's where it started from.
100%.
So it doesn't have
every day.
It doesn't have to start huge, right? Like,
no.
It's just start.
It was literally me and her
just
grinding every single day. Like, probably should have taken a couple more days off. But I mean, and it was every little detail was just me and her. I mean, we had no help on purpose. Well, we could have used a little more help. But I mean, but now... the fact that we were able to do that together, the fact that we have a physical representation of our bond and what we're capable of together. And then now we both have these careers that we're able to thrive off of. It's just with her moving too, when she's moving, I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to make it work? And then in the next breath, I have 3 artists. So it's like everything, she's happy. We're happy. It's just crazy how you think that something's going to completely change, maybe for the worse, and it ends up changing for the better of everybody involved. Yeah. I think it's just trusting the process.
Well, and there's a process to everything.
Always.
And you can't skip the process.
No.
I mean, there's
even if you want to.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You can't skip it.
Yeah.
I couldn't be more proud of you. I like your place is beautiful. Obviously, the work you're doing, I'm glad to be part of your life. Well, I could not be more proud of you.
Extremely appreciative for you. So you'll never know how you've changed my life, Michael.
Thank you for doing this for me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It's been fantastic.